Hey friends, welcome back. You guys have made this easier and easier for me. It's still like a little off for me to just kind of talk in the camera and just go for it, but we do it. You guys watch it, you guys support me, and you guys are the coolest. So, thank you. Like seriously, I mean it. You guys are the best. Like I wouldn't keep going if I didn't have the support that you guys give me. So I love it. So last episode, I think I cut off at the end. So we're gonna kind of wrap up that real fast. And then today I want to talk about, I'm like looking over my notes. I'm gonna kind of talk about like my healing process, what happened after I moved out. Like I know I told you guys like I lived in Tennessee and a couple things, but I'm gonna go more like in detail to the more like specific things I've done over like the time period from when I escaped or got away, broke free, however you want to phrase it, until like now. It's been a long journey. I'm gonna kind of tell you guys some of my secrets of the things that I still struggle with. There's a couple things, there's a lot of things, emotions that like I'm aware of that I'm feeling it, but some of them are hard to control, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, so let's finish the rest of that story. So I'm not sure how the last video got cut off right there. I thought I had all the edits in there. Sometimes I have to stop it because I got a kid or like something I have to handle real fast. But yeah, so anyways, yeah, I think I deleted it. And so I don't know how it didn't get in there, but we're going to finish that. My dad, so he was worried about me going off to college. That's where we ended. And he brought me into his room and he was just like, I know you're gonna go off to college soon. I mean, I'm like, oh yay, like am I? And he's like, well, I was just wondering if you would like wait a year before you go, and if you would be my girlfriend. No? What? No? And yeah, he asked me if I would put off college to be his girlfriend. Pretty much, I told him he was crazy. Like, I didn't want to. I wasn't comfortable with it, but when it came to him and me, I didn't have much of a choice because he is a larger man. Both, he was just taller, strong, big, like fatter, like he just everything. So he was just a dominant person. So he was just really scary to me. He was very physically abusive, so I knew that he would whip me with a belt or whatever. He just, yeah, he was an awful person. So I just really honestly didn't even give him an answer. It was just kind of like I knew I didn't have a choice. Like this is after I tried to escape already the first time, and I just knew that I didn't have a choice. So that's the ending of that one. As far as like when he asked me to actually be his girlfriend, like full on. So this story we're gonna start back in Tennessee. So the kid that helped me out, I'm just not going to mention names just because I'm not to that point yet. Eventually they'll probably all come out. But this person, he was actually quite a bit older than me. And so we had a relationship for 10 months. He helped me out a lot. He would take me to his parents' house when I would feel anxious there, like that my dad was going to come get me. He would take me and he protected me. He honestly did. He just knew what I went through. And so over time, we talked a lot. But eventually it just got to a point where after I started working and feeling liberated, like I wasn't so much into the relationship because I didn't want to be tied down. And I knew this guy being 10 years older than me and having a little bit more experience and not a similar situation, that he was ready for something that I was not. So like I said, we were together for 10 months. And I just called it quits. I was kind of done with it. Just because, like, I had always respected and appreciated everything, but there just wasn't a connection. Like, there wasn't that, like, but also at the same time, I mean, I just got out of my parents, like, that situation. I wasn't ready to be with somebody. And with him being 10 years older than me, he was ready to more put a ring on it, and I just wasn't. And so I just felt it in my gut that it wasn't the relationship, the place to be. But I have always been super grateful because he's what started the process. So our breakup honestly kind of went a little bit ugly. I worked as a server at a restaurant. One of my best friends that worked there, she was breaking up with her baby's dad. And so she had like room in her place, so she was like, hey, come move in with me. So I ended up moving in with her. Moved in with her. He kept coming by the house for a little bit. It was just kind of like trying to be like, get you back. But no, it just wasn't really happening. I honestly wanted to be a free spirit. Like, I wanted to go be myself. I didn't want anybody holding me back. And so a relationship at the time was not a good idea. So I move in with her, and she, gives me like another room. Like, it's just, so I live with her for about a month at this house, and we decide to become official roommates. So we're roommates, and we decide that we need to get a different house because her lease was up on that one, and she didn't want to live there anymore. Like, it was terrible. It was small. Like, there was problems. So we're like, okay. So because she was working at a bar, she was working a lot. She worked a lot of hours, and so anyways, so I was like, okay, like, at the time, I just had the one job where I was working at a Walmart deli, and so I was only working not as much as her, and so I ended up doing most of the moving by myself. So anyways, we found a nice house together. So this house we found, the landlord was actually pretty sketchy. He was just kind of like, two teenage girls, but like he had a crush on her. And so where he wanted to, like, they had that little thing going on, so he's like, fine. So it's like he let us have the house. And honestly, it was a fair-sized house. Like, out there in Winchester, Tennessee, small house. Winchester, yeah. Big house. Like, it's just a small town. And so, like, it was just the end of property. It was, like, kind of the perfect party house. And that's what we were looking for. Like, something with room that, like, I could have my privacy. She could have her privacy. Her son could have a room. And so we found a really nice house that was on the outskirts of town. So after we moved into that house, I found a job right down the road that was at the small mom and pop diner where I became like the head server there because they needed somebody. Because I really wanted to advance in life. So after I started working there, I was pretty much working from 6 a.m. to about 3 p.m. where I'd go to Walmart from 4 p.m. to about 10 p.m. 10 to 11 p.m. on average, working at the deli closing. So I was going back and forth, and at the time all I had was a bike. So I would get on my bike in the morning, and then sometimes I would have enough time to hurry home because the restaurant was like literally like around the corner from my house, which was kind of nice. Go change, or half the time I just head straight to work and then bike 3 miles back home. So I got to a point where I saved enough money and I bought my first car. I realized that was going to be a big step in me succeeding. So looking back, we're going to pause on the story for a second. Looking back, my father, like, my parents never really, like, gave us the ambition. Like, they didn't encourage us to do stuff. Like, I always wanted to do stuff, but they restricted me. So I didn't, like, I've had people ask me, why didn't you, like, turn to drugs? And I wanted to, but I just didn't. I ended up drinking a good bit in my life to escape a lot of the pain. So I wouldn't say just because I didn't do drugs or narcotics per se that I didn't like try to escape the pain. I do have scars on my arm. I used to cut my wrists a lot. So I have some that penetrated pretty deep that hopefully one day I can get covered up. Hopefully one day soon. I think we've talked about that before, my tattoos. So hopefully all the arm can just disappear. So like I said, just because I didn't take like narcotics per se, I've had a little bit of, it's been a long learning experience. So here we go. So we're going to go back to this story now. Whew, there's so much here. There's so much. So we lived at the house together, and she worked as a bartender, and I thought it was the coolest thing. So we're going to back up before I got the car. We were kind of sharing her Jeep, but it had like bad steering, like power steering problems. Like, it took a lot of muscle to try and move it. So we were really good friends. We did everything together. We hung out with the same groups of people. We like went to parties together. We threw parties together. We were everywhere. Like, when she was at work, if I wasn't working, I would come hang out like at the bar. She would give me free drinks. Like, it's kind of all the benefits of like, sorry, my hair is terrible. I have coconut oil in it, so like, I'll picky about it. So with the free drinks and everything, like, we were loving life. Like, you imagine, just the situation I was in, then all of a sudden I'm like escape and I'm free, and not only am I free, but now I'm like drinking free drinks, I'm partying with people. There was a time, so yeah, I decided I'm gonna live my life. So we get, like, this is a big reason why I broke up, because at the time, honestly, I wanted to just be young, wild, and dumb. Like, I wanted to live the life that I never got to experience. Like, so much of it was bottled up. This is why it's scary, and you have to teach your kids balance, because you don't want them to turn around and, like, kill themselves because they get too involved. So anyways, one story is we went to where the bar she was working at, there was a local band that came and played. And so anyways, they were having an after party at, like, one of the little producers' houses. And so we went out to his house because we were both invited. And so it was one of those, like, all night parties. And so we ended up partying with these people a few times, actually. So he ended up, like, once again had a crush on my friend. That's just kind of how I always felt. Like, I had low self-esteem for a while. It's taken a lot to get to the confidence that I am at, because so many people beat me down. So anyway, so it was always just like, your friend, your friend, your friend, your friend, your friend, hey, your friend. So it was just like, to me, it was just always hard. It was like, hey, your friend, but not you. So I, like, honestly, between that and school and how picky my dad was towards me, like, I developed a really deep body confidence. So I just drank and partied my life away. I just figured that was the way to go. Like, I wanted to go be slutty, honestly. Like, I wanted to just go live a life, and so I did. So we got to the point, like I said, that we were partying with these people, this, at least the producer dude that wanted my friend for a while. So when we went over for one party, he had some mushrooms. And I'm pretty sure this dude gave us mushroom and acids at the same time. Like, I'm pretty sure. And so I just remember, because I remember saying that to someone, was like, what? Because this was the first time we had ever done it. So we had tripped out that night. I remember, honestly, my experience was pretty pleasant. My friend was freaking out because she was like, I'm a mom, we shouldn't be doing this. Like, she was going in and out. Like, I'm not going to talk too much about my experience here. You can ask me about it. But yeah, so we let this person that we was barely kind of getting to know give us, like, a Deluxe and just be like, here, take this at his house. Like, where was your brain? So apparently I didn't have one at the time. So go into random people's houses and just drinking and partying, and they would kind of be flirty, and I would just drinking, dripping my balls off. Like, honestly, it happened a bit. Got to a point he was giving us Molly. We went to raves. So I'm not gonna lie, at the time it was fun. It was like, I was loving life. I was loving that I could be out all night and didn't have anybody to answer to. Like, no boyfriend, no father, no, like, nobody's gonna tell me what to do at this point. And so we were living a wild life, and I was loving it. Then all of a sudden at one of these parties, so let's back up. So we were at the bar one night, and she was working, and I was just in there, and it was a really crowded night. I believe that band was playing. And so my ex-boyfriend had came in, and he was, like, trying to, again, like, after months, had been like, come please, like, back. And so I was like, no. So I remember I had pushed him out of the bar. I was just, like, kept pushing on him for him to go out. I was like, I wasn't going to have it. Like, I didn't want to be. And this one kid had saw it. So this was the one that band played, and so when we went to so when I pushed the kid out, later on, this woman came up, and she was like, hey, that was impressive. And I was like, yeah, it was my ex, like, he's trying to do this, but this is kind of, like, not really much of my situation, just a little bit. And she was like, oh, okay. And she was, this is my son. And so I said, oh, hi, son, you're cute. So we kind of talked, we exchanged numbers for a minute, and then later at the after party, I had actually saw him and his friend that was with, so it's like their family was at the bar. So he and his friend were there, and so we ended up kind of hooking up. Honestly, I just wanted to hook up. Like, I wasn't looking for a relationship. I just honestly was very confused and tried to be a people pleaser. And so, being as sad as I was, he made me feel good about myself. So, like, I felt happy. So I was content with where I was at. So, but anyways, so we went, and after we started hooking up more and more, it was just kind of like, let's just be friends. But she didn't really care too much for him, because one of her good friends at the bar used to date him. So it was just, of course, the small town drama stuff. So they didn't want anything to do with him, but I liked him because he was making me happy, like, just all this stuff. And so there became drama between her and I. So it got to a point one night, she like, so she knew my story. She didn't know in depth, but she had a good idea of some things that had happened. And so I had told her, and I got more comfortable telling people at this point. I just still didn't tell a lot of people. Coming out just recently, like I did, was my biggest thing. Obviously, but yeah, so I had slowly like acquired the strength by telling people. So she was one of the first people. I mean, after my first boyfriend, right? So she calls me one night when him and I are hanging out. And so I didn't answer. She calls me again. I didn't answer. She probably called me about 3 or 4 times. I don't quite remember. So she calls me again. So I finally answer and I'm like, what? She's like, you need to answer when I'm calling you. And I was just like, who do you think you're talking to? Like, and so she kind of goes off on me. And on the phone, she's like, she's at the bar, she's drunk, she's drinking at work, and she just says, Daddy Dick Sucker, excuse me, I'm sorry, get your ass, like, it was along those lines of, like, get over here to the bar, like, right now. And it had to do something with the drama, like, my ex-boyfriend. And so anyways, but either way, she had no right to call me that. She took something personal. I told her, and that's a big reason I stopped telling people about it. And so after she did that, like, we ended up kind of getting to a point where, like I said, this is now where I decided to pick up a second job. I said, you know what, I don't want to be home when you're home. I don't want to be around you, so I'm going to go get a second job. I'm going to better my life, because I saw what these things in her environment were doing to her, and I just didn't want to be a part of it. So I was like, yeah, she was just drugging, like, coming home, like I said, now getting back to, she started having loud parties. And so I was working the second job now at 6 a.m., getting home late. So anyway, she would get home from the bar, bring her bar friends over, and they would just be loud. And my bedroom was right outside the kitchen. I would ask her, she'd just tell me to get bent, F off, you know, those type of things. So it's like, fine. So it's like, we got to a point, like, she was trying to be controlling of me once again. And it's like, you would think your friend, your roommate. So she went, I don't know what happened to her, but she was showing me an example of what I didn't want to be. Like, I'm sorry, but I didn't want to be anything like that. So that's why I said I'm going to work 2 jobs. So this kid and I started hanging out more, of course, because now his family had taken me in. And at this point, I really had nobody. So his family took me in, his older brother, his younger brother, and then his parents. And his mom, you know, was still impressed from watching me push that guy out. So it got to a point, like, I feel like we were just really good friends. I don't feel like we were meant to be a couple, but we just had a really good, like, friendship that clicked. And we just kind of, you know, leaned on each other. And it's like, I just felt like I was holding him back. But, yeah, so his family kind of took me in, and they were some amazing, awesome people, just, like, super giving. I still think they're amazing people. I have no anger or regret towards them whatsoever. You guys know who you are, and I love you. All my Tennessee friends, you guys just have completed so much of my stepping stones to getting where I am. So it got to a point where I just, like, I couldn't live with my roommate anymore. So they let me start sleeping on their parents' couch. Like, I was sleeping at so they got to a point where they were moving up to, him and his older brother were moving up to Murfreesboro, which is outside, like, where MTSU is, the university over there. So they were not far from there, where he was going to school. So at this point, at least I had my car, I could drive around, I had a steady income, I was doing okay. I was still, like, super broke, but I was doing okay. I cut back some of my hours, and they invited me to be able to go, like, live up with them in their Murfreesboro apartment. So I went, and stepping back real fast, so when I went and bought my car, my salesman was awesome. We had a long talk. It was like a 7-hour process, and we got along, and afterwards he was like, why don't you go become a salesman? So I did. So that's what I did up in Murfreesboro, is I went and sold cars. And I loved it. But I was doing it, so I lived with them for about 2-3 months, I want to say. I honestly don't remember. And I was learning a lot, so I still wasn't that great. And I still wasn't making that much money. And they let me slide with not paying them rent for actually quite a while, which was super helpful. But I got to a point that I was like, okay, I have to pay something, right? So I was trying out, but we all 3 of us just got along. Like, I felt like we were just friends. So realizing that I was in a toxic environment, after toxic, like, it's listening to your stomach. So I just have always tried to just listen to my like instinct. If it's telling me don't do this, or you have anxiety about something, there's probably for a reason. Um, so anyways, I got out of the toxic environment, right? The first one with the relationship, it wasn't quite working out. And then with her, like, I knew that I could join her level and join her parties and make her happy with me and like whatever and just like still live there. But that wasn't the life I wanted to live. And so with these two brothers, like, we painted, we played, like, we did things, like, and so I loved it. We had a lot of fun. But it got to a point, like, I thought I missed my family. That's where I was the most confused. I had missed smoking with my brothers. That was something I enjoyed. I know it's so silly, but it's all I ever got to do. So I was like, I missed my brothers, like my little sister. Like, I want to go see my mom. Like, obviously one person there that I didn't care to see. But I was like, for the sake of like the rest of my family. So I texted my parents and I said I'm moving back. And I told the brothers I was living with. And honestly, I still struggle with it, honestly. Like, I can't say I struggle with it because I wouldn't be where I'm at without it, but I definitely miss that home. Just all my friends back there. It was, like I said, great. So he offers to, because I said I'm just going to drive back. Like, I loaded everything I have up in my little Chevy Cruze that I had that I bought, and I said I'm just going to drive. I don't remember how many miles it is, but it was like 24 hours or something. I said, yeah. He's like, are you going to do that alone? He's like, well, I'll tell you what. If you wait till the morning to leave instead of like right now, middle of the night, because I was going to leave at like 10 o'clock at night or something like that. He says, I will go with you. I will book a plane ticket. So he like really like, he knew I was leaving and it wasn't a get out of here, get gone. Like, he helped me out. He drove with me back to Utah, where we switched off driving. We drove through a blizzard in Wyoming. Like, I slept, he slept. Like, we just kept going. We stopped at a Denny's for breakfast, and yeah, he dropped me off and took him to the airport the next morning. I mean, we like went to a hotel. We stayed the night, and where he just had to get up the next morning and fly back to Tennessee. Like I said, it's kind of a little rough because these people, I wasn't in love with anyone. Like, I wasn't ready to settle down or anything like that. But these people knew my situation, most of them, and they fought for me. They, they didn't overstep their boundaries. They didn't push me to go do anything. Like, it was slow steps. So, like, so the fact that he was willing to, in a breakup, like, drive me with me thousands of, like, 1,500, 1,300 miles, whatever it was, and then fly back the next day just to go back to work, like, that evening, like, that's a real MVP. Like, that's a good person. Go find him, you know. So here I am, back in Utah, just dropped him off. I'm at my hotel, and I'm going, shoot. That means I gotta go see my family. I remember being so anxious. Like, they were living with my aunt at the time, and so my understanding was that I was gonna have a room. Like, there was gonna be room there, and so pack all my stuff up at the hotel, eat some breakfast, and I go over to my family's house, at my aunt's house. There was no room. They had like 13, 15, I don't know, something like that. Like, my family had like 5, 6 people there, and in like a 5-bedroom house. So there was no room there. So yeah, I'm like, here I am, broke, just left a good situation. Now I'm depressed because now I'm back in shithole land. So welcome back. And then my family, so I didn't have any choice. So here I am. It's like a couple days before Christmas, I believe. I had a little Christmas exchange with his family, but before I left. Their family, I should say. And so I get back to my family, and it's terrible. Terrible living situation. Oh no, what did I do? Like, I didn't think about it at the time because I would have went and lived with my grandma. I would have went and lived with, but I just at the point was just still so manipulated by his, like, I had to be, like, I don't know, like, so I moved back, and it wasn't long, like, of just instantly being there, that I felt disgusted and I like regretted everything in life. So I went to find a job immediately, and I went to the dealerships all down State Street and applied to every single one of them because I wanted a job. And so anyways, they're like, a lot of them were like, oh, we'll call you, right? So I've kind of said this story. The one dealership said, hey, we'll take you immediately if you want to start working. So I just wanted out of my situation. So with all of that, why I tell you that is because the healing process is, like I said, the whole listening to your gut instinct and just knowing that you were the only person that you, like, that knows you, that knows everything you've gone through. Like, this person may be this part, this person may be this part, this person may be even a huge part, but you're still, like, you're still your own person, and you're the only person that knows you. So you're just going to know what's best for you, and I just knew this Tennessee wasn't. Like, something was calling me back to Utah. That's why I wanted to mostly go back. Like, I wanted to get back to Utah. I don't know why. I just felt like living at my parents' house. I didn't think of my grandparents even, like, none of that even, like, clicked in my mind. So, yeah, so I moved in just looking for. So, anyway, so I was at work all the time. I saw old friends. I would try to go sleep at their house if they were doing anything, because at this point, I said no control. Like, I didn't want to even see that man. Like, if he was home and I would just not be home. I wouldn't go home till late at night when he was in bed and his door was closed. Like, I did not want to see him. I was not going to let him have an ounce, just any control over me. Like, at this point, like, I'm 23 years old when I first moved back in, 24, about to turn 24. And I just knew that, like, I had to stand my ground. So yeah, I was working a lot at the dealership, and I feel like I was doing pretty good at selling cars, and that's when Steve and I had met. Now, we have a good bit of history, and I would say that this is where it gets rough. Hibbs and I, we've had a lot of, I was making mistake after mistake. I felt trapped in so many situations, and so we're gonna get there. So I felt like with my previous stories with the relationship and this, I was handling things pretty well. Like, I was drinking a little bit, like, but not all the time. I wasn't looking to get drunk. Like, I would want, like, a buzz or whatever, but I wasn't looking to drink a lot. I wasn't cutting myself. I wasn't doing anything. But it quickly changed when I moved back to Utah. I moved back in with my parents. Because of, after I was working at the dealership, Steve and I we're kind of dating more, but I wasn't living with him, and we started seeing each other more. And so I got to a point we were turning a lot of deals back and forth, and the manager said, you guys need to stop that. And so it got to a point, because I was only turning deals to him. It got to a point where the managers told us, yeah, we had to stop it, and so it got, hard on our relationship, because that's what we did. That's how we made money. So then that stopped, and so I decided I'm going to go find a new job, and so to keep the relationship was more important. So I decided to go find another job, and right down the road from where my parents lived was this, a residential treatment home for youth. And so anyway, so I got a job there as a residential advisor, and I loved it. I worked there for about a year, and the kids I worked with were awesome. They were anywhere between 12 to, once they turned 18, they would graduate. And so I grew you grow strong relationships, because the same people, you're there for half the day watching them, going and taking them to walking around the house. You get really close with them, and you let them vent to you, and you help them out, and you learn the proper wording. So as I was learning how to teach them to cope, I was learning more of my own coping skills. So I was okay, this is how you're more aware of your emotions. But it also backfired working there. It backfired because after hearing a lot of these stories, some of them were really triggering, and I realized that I hadn't processed my own trauma fully. They had brought up a lot of emotions that I was still questioning, and a lot of things as far as why did this happen to me? So working there, and living in my parents' house, I actually continued to cut myself. that's honestly really hard for me to admit because a lot of people view it as a very weak thing to do. But it was one of my coping skills, and even though I was teaching girls not to do it, watching them do it was triggering. So I went back to that, and staff noticed, people noticed, and it got really embarrassing, and I was actually fired from that job. It's the only job I've ever been fired from. But in a way, I think it was a good thing because I learned a lot working there. I met a lot of relationships. I still see from some of these people, and I talked to some of the staff. Like a lot of them have moved on, so it just hurt in the moment because I realized like I had a lot of healing to do still. But at the same time, here I was now at my parents' house, and I was dating Steve, and so anyways, I was sleeping over there a lot. Like I pretty much had stuff at my parents' house, and ironically, Steve lived at the same apartment complex that my parents had an apartment at. They moved from my aunt's house like shortly after I moved in. They moved to an apartment complex, and I just moved in with them, not having anywhere to go. I don't know again. And so anyways, so Steve lived down the road, and so he would come pick me up, and so, or like we'd go on our dates or whatever, and half the time I would just go over there and even walk over and just spend the night with him. So I got to a point of a comfort level, and so my parents decided to just up and tell me, hey, we're moving back to New Mexico. So I was like, oh, okay, like when? There's like next week, like we're getting a U-Haul and like going, and I was like, oh shoot, where am I gonna go? And Steve was like, well, I'm not ready for like this commitment yet, but you can move in. So I was like, well, okay, like I understand that, but honestly, at the time, I was very head over heels. I was very just like, I was lust. I was very lustful over him. So I was very eager. I was like, okay, like I'll move in with you, not realizing that I had given up my last bit of freedom. Like I don't know how that sounds, but I did. This was my chance to move on and go do something on my own. Move once again, if I would have moved into my grandparents' house. I'm not like regretting anything like that. That's not the angle I'm going on. But what I am saying is I just should have realized that moving in with a person kind of obviously makes you a thing. Like it just kind of happened. I don't think neither one of us really wanted it. And even though we were kind of living together, like we still wasn't really saying like love you or like I don't know, it just was weird. And so we grew close though. We did, after eventually we found by this time we decided we wanted to be together, and so we found a 2-bedroom apartment and just kind of like upgraded our lifestyle. So here we are, and so we lived at that apartment for 2 years, and then we moved into a bigger home and then I got pregnant. But there's a lot of stuff that happened in our relationship. I don't really want to talk about that, but it was just kind of damaging stuff, honestly. Like even though like there's been forgiveness, it's still just really mentally hurtful. And so just a matter of like trust being an issue. So we had a lot of fights, a lot of begging, a lot of like just drinking heavy. I was kind of depressed. I felt like I locked myself up, but like I wanted to leave, but I didn't feel like I could. And so I started drinking a lot. I just felt like I was always going to be trapped. I just felt like that was going to be my life, like that I'm not going to like I don't know. I want to be single and go. I don't know exactly. Like just live by myself and not have a roommate, not have someone to answer to. So at my point, like I thought that that's what I needed, and so I was like, I don't want to be in a relationship, but I feel forced in a relationship, so I ended up getting pregnant. And I know that sounds terrible after what I just said, but he got excited, and so he changed quite a bit after the pregnancy. Stopped doing the stupid things he was doing, and so our life got a lot better. So I had my kid, who is now almost 2 years old, and so I like had the kid, but my first part of postpartum was terrible. I was super depressed. and I just was like sad all the time. I felt alone. I felt useless. I felt ugly and fat. I missed being pregnant. I had a lot of issues. So thankfully at this point, I was still breastfeeding, and so I couldn't like just drink, and so I hadn't like sunk into that. So I guess I maybe it was kind of I didn't really take medications. I didn't see anybody. I just was facing my postpartum on my own. I was trying too hard to just do it, just suffer through it, and I was yeah. So it was not a good idea. So eventually I started weaning off breastfeeding, and all of a sudden, as soon as I did that, I started drinking. I started drinking more, started weaning off more, drinking more, weaning, and it's like he stopped breastfeeding. And then I started drinking a lot. And so I got to a point where I have I have anger issues, and I don't really like to talk about them because I don't like to admit it, but it's real. And so it's caused a lot of dangerous fights between Steve and I, or doing stupid things that I definitely shouldn't have done while drinking. I got too heavy into it, and so I started to slow down drinking because I realized how bad I was getting, and got to a point I said, you know what, I need something else to fill my time, because if I'm just going to be home all the time, I'm just going to be sad and drink, and that's just going to be what happens. So yeah, so I stopped drinking, and decided I should get a job. So that's when I started working at Vasa Fitness. I worked in the childcare because I could take Braxton with me. I had started going to the gym a little bit more, and so that helped too, was going to the gym. It helped me cut back drinking more because I was finding another outlet. So I decided I wanted to work, and so I started working there. And it was almost like a miracle pill. It was something about just being able to talk to people and use that energy in some way. I felt completely different. I didn't feel house locked. I felt like just being able to be myself. I felt happy. Yeah, I had bad days or I had anxiety, but I wasn't depressed. I wasn't just at home thinking of bad, scary thoughts. I was happy. I love my job. And so that kind of leads us up to where we are now, is COVID. And so I'll give you a quick snippet of how I'm dealing with that. And here we go. So COVID's been rough for many people. When it first hit me, I kind of almost got into a depression after I lost my job, because I was working towards a management position at a different location, because the manager really was going to train me and all this stuff. I was excited, I was going to move up, and all of a sudden COVID just hit. So for the first month, I was honestly really depressed. I was really mad. I was really angry. I really didn't like it. I didn't like just all of a sudden taking a back step. But what happened is I started to find myself. I started to do yoga every morning. I started to meditate. I started to read more. I started to study. I got a nutritional certification. I started to just do more things, and it feels, because I'm still doing it, awesome. Maybe it's just I'm a busy person, but I like it. I find things in a positive way to help me keep going. There's so many things that I just do throughout the day that keeps me busy, and I love it. Because when you find yourself and you start to get to a point that you truly love yourself, because you can spend time by yourself, I'm happy. Honestly, I mean, there's times when I like to go hang out with friends and go have play dates and when Steve's home, but honestly, learn to be happy with yourself. Learn to know that you don't have to have people in your life. And I don't mean it I'm this closet case and I don't go hang out with people, because I do plenty. Because I'm a very extroverted person. I love to talk, and this is a big reason why I do the YouTube. I just love to be open. I love to be myself, because I feel like there's no reason I used to try to be fake to impress people. And I would say that's another healing thing, is being yourself, because it's, who cares? People are going to like you and people aren't. I've got people that are following me on here and people that are just going to see my stuff and skim by, but guess what? Be yourself, and that's just find your niche in life. So that's honestly the healing process. I still have a lot of anxiety. Some days the anxiety gets to me, but here's the thing is, I know when I'm anxious. I know when I'm feeling anger come on, or I know when I'm feeling a certain emotion come on. I know that I got to back away from a situation. I know that I have to think it through. And even though I'm not against medicine at all, I just have done a lot of healing with no pharmaceutical help. And I feel like I've come really far. And to each their own, but that's just something that I feel like unless my body needs it specifically, like hormonal type things, gonna keep being myself and just keep pushing forward, because I feel like that's honestly the truest medicine. Because when you don't feel like you're trying to impress people and you're not really holding back on you, you get to release a lot of energy and just a lot of serotonin. So be you, take care.